Hey, what's up? This is Mike Portnoy of Sons of Apollo and the Winery Dogs, Transatlantic Flying Colors, Neil Morse Band, Metal Allegiance, and whoever else you might be listening to today, and you're geeking out with the Gear Gods.
This is Sherinian, and you're geeking out to Gear Gods.
Hola amigos, this is Billy Sheehan, your bass player, and you're geeking out to Gear Gods.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's Mike Portnoy coming to you from Anaheim, California, and I'm on tour with Sons of Apollo. I think the last time I saw you guys on this channel, I was with the Winery Dogs. So I'm going to show you my kit here, but this is actually, I should start off by pointing out, this is the same kit I was using with the Winery Dogs with some modifications. So I'll give you a tour of the kit, I'll point out the similarities and the differences from the Canine Monster. What is this kit? Is it the Apollonian Monster, maybe? I haven't named this kit since I've been out with Sons of Apollo. So for lack of a better name, we'll call it the Apollonian Monster for now. So basically, it's the same finish, obviously, as the Winery Dogs kit, which was a Silver Sparkle Tama Star Classic Babinga. The only differences in terms of the drums is, well, we have the concert toms in the front, which is a 12 and a 13. And here on the left, we have the 8 and the 10 concert toms. And then over here is a 16 and an 18 floor tom. So this is all what I had on the Canine Monster. And then my Melody Master snare in a custom Silver Sparkle finish, which you can't get. That's custom made for me. But the new additions is this gong drum here on the right and this 14-inch floor tom on the left. And I actually have 4 octobans that were made for this kit as well. So by the time this airs, they may have been added to the kit. We're just trying to figure out where to fit them. We're considering putting the 4 of them in the front, or considering putting them over here above the cymbals, which is something I've never done before. So it's yet to be seen whether or not those are gonna make it onto the kit. So those are the drums. Cymbals, pretty much the Canine Monster setup is intact, which is pretty symmetrical in terms of the splashes, the crashes, the chinas, and the crashes. But the new additions are these, I don't know, I'm calling them lampshade cymbals. It's a Sabian prototype. I'm not sure if they were even released, actually, but I love the sound of them, and I used them on the kit when I recorded the Sons of Apollo album. So they're now part of the live setup. So those are new, and we put the stacks and the bell up front, which is what I usually have on most of my kits. I didn't have it on the Canine Monster, but we brought it back for this kit. In terms of heads, these are brand new Remo color tone heads, and they come in blue and red and green and all different colors, but I figured the best for this kit would be, what is it? It's called like smoke, right? It's smoke finished, I think. So they sound really good. They really work with these concert toms too, the single-headed toms as well. So that's about it. I mean, my pedals are my Speed Cobras that I've been using for years. I got a Latin percussion mounted tambourine over here. The big boy. Oh, I forgot about that. How could I forget about the gong? Come on. It's all about the gong. This is the Sabian Zodiac gong, which basically starts the show. We open with God of the Sun, which begins with a gong. So this is like, okay, let the games begin, boom, and we're off to the races. And it's also used towards the end of the show as well. So it only gets hit twice during the show, unless I'm pissed. If you see me hit it more than 2 times in the show, you know I'm having a bad night. The mallet's right here. As I showed you guys probably on the last tour, we each have our own monitor system here. So we don't have to have a monitor guy at the venue controlling our destiny. Basically, I have control over the drum mix, the bass, the keyboards, the guitars. That's Jeff's vocal, my vocal, and Ron's vocal, and then that's talkback from the front of house. It's great having that, and my drum tech on this tour is Mr. Robbie Cope. Quick cutaway! And He's been doing a great job. So basically, if I need a change in the monitors, he deals with it. And it's the same with most of the other guys on the stage as well. Everybody's got control over their own destiny. The only other thing that's not here right now, because we took it down for filming purposes, is my microphone, which of course is, kept very busy. I sing pretty much in almost every song throughout the show. So there's a lot of singing, and Robbie's got to be, he's got to know the songs and know the cues and take it in and give it. Well, usually he just gives it to me and then I'll send it back. So it's kind of a one-way system. What else? My throne, which is covered in a towel, because from night to night it gets completely covered with sweat and swamp ass. That's the one dirty job of being a drummer. And sticks. How could I forget? These are my ProMark 420Xs, which I've now been using for a couple of years. They're thicker and a little heavier than my traditional 420s, and they're also in a black finish. And these are with the Sons of Apollo logo. All my tours, I have the different bands on the sticks, so you could only get my band custom sticks at the shows, whatever I break or use, we'll put them at the merch stand or whatever, but you can't get them at retail with the band names. I think that's it, right? Microphones, you can't really see them right now, but I use Audix mics and I have been for years on the road. The tom ones are, because they're concert toms, they're mic'd from underneath, so they're mounted on the inside on the concert toms, and then on the outside for the regular floor toms. It looks like a lot of drums and cymbals, and it is, but I guess that's the entire tour. So come see Sons of Apollo at a theater near you or a club near you. We got about 3 more weeks left on this US tour. So by the time you see this, we might be rounding the end of it. And then we're going to be in Europe all summer long doing the festivals. We're going to Japan, and it's a great, great band. And myself, Billy Sheehan, Derek Sherinian, Jeff Scott Soto, and Ron Bumblefoot Thal. It's a 5-headed musical monster on stage. So come on out, enjoy the show, and see you then.
Hey, this is Derek Sherinian, Sons of Apollo. This is my rig for the 2018 tour, Nord Lead 3. We've got a Korg Kronos X, a 1959 Hammond C3, and a Mellotron 4000D, Marcus Retsch Mellotron, and I'm using Engel amps, and I'm using these Marshall replicas for the B3. And I'm getting a great sound, and I've been running through a little bit of a change-up since I've seen you last, Trey. I'm going through the Helix. Billy Sheehan has been using it on his rig, and he highly recommended that I try it out, and I love it. It's very fucking great and consistent, and it's all in one box, and it switches MIDI patch changes with the Nord, and it's really a good thing to have. So I've been getting great sounds out of this Nord. And so that's sounding killer. B3 is fucking. So everything's sounding great. Mellotron. And then Korg-wise. And there it is.
Hola amigos, this is Billy Sheehan. I'm a bass player and I'm about to show you my rig on a rig rundown here. First of all, I need a bass. I'm going to be using this Yamaha double neck. It's a Yamaha Attitude bass, but it's done as a double neck. It was custom shop because they don't make a factory double neck, of course, but it's still basically the Yamaha Attitude bass, which is dual output. And the advantage of the dual output is many. Back in the old days, Gibson basses and Fender basses were the two basses that we mostly had. There were Ricks and there were Hofners and there were other kinds around, but basically it was Fender or Gibson for many, many years. And the Gibson basses had this big fat chrome covered pickup on their EBO or EB3 bass, also on the Epiphone Rivoli bass for that neck position sound. And that was a great sound back in the 60s that I fell in love with. Some of my favorite bass players used it. Pete Cetera from Chicago, Paul Samuel Smith from the Yardbirds did it also. And so when I first got my first P bass with just that P bass pickup on it, I loved it, but I go, where's that super deep low end? Wrote to Gibson. I'm not even sure if I paid him for it, but they sent me a pickup. I didn't know how to wire it, so I put the pickup in, new volume, a new tone, and then just ran a separate output for it, and then ran it into two channels of the amp. One pickup one channel, one pickup the other. So after a while, it made perfect sense because you really had control on the bass of your low and high all the time, which will show you if I plug the darn thing in and can actually illustrate this point. I'm not using wireless on this tour because our crew is overtaxed severely, so I wanted to make life easier for them. And I'm not running around on a big arena stage anyway, so I just went with a regular old cable with a silent plug on there. 1, 2, right in there. I'll turn this down a bit so it's not blasting. What I have here is a kind of a dual setup. In the old days, I used two Ampeg SVTs. We're straight into each one low, one high. The low one was EQ'd with bass and not much middle of treble. The high one was EQ'd with middle and treble and not much bass. So it acted as kind of like a crossover. Then as time went on, I got into more pro audio stuff, and back in the day, from about 1972 on, I was using rack-mounted pro audio gear for my bass, which was expensive and required some expertise on my part to learn how to run it and use it, including pro audio compressors and stuff like that. So yeah, the years came and went and the decades went by, and now we come up to the present time, and here we have the Line 6 Helix, which there are many devices similar to the Helix. The Axifex and the Kemper. They're both wonderful units, and I hate to have the difference between the units be another source for people arguing over the internet. So they're all great. They're all fantastic. The differences between them are slight. So whatever your personality demands, that's the one you should go with, and that's the best one for you. I happen to like this Helix particularly because I have within it the first little block is a Pierce preamp. And it's not only any Pierce preamp, it's the one I used from about 1979 up until recently. It was made for me by Dan Pierce, who was from Buffalo, New York, and he was just starting out, and he had this new preamp, and I tried it, and it was just spectacular. The distortion on it was just so wonderful. The tails, when a note would die off, would just drift into clean sound as opposed to any rasping or harshness, and it just became a part of me for so many years. But I hated I've known so many fly-in dates now. I hate flying with it because it could easily get smashed or lost or whatever. So Line 6 asked me to bring my Pierce preamp down, and they actually modeled my Pierce preamp, which is the original one. It has an extra gain stage in it too. The particular one I had, Dan did for me as a modification. And I believe I got my facts straight on this. Pardon me if I don't, but when Line 6 is modeling a piece of gear, they do it component by component on the circuit board, which to me is pretty impressive. They were the first modelers too, as far as I know, with a kidney-shaped pod and all that, which still sounds pretty good, I think. So they thought it would take them about a week or two to model the Pierce, but it ended up over a month on it. I'm glad, because they really dug deep and they got it right. So basically, I have my rack of gear that I used to have back in the old days, but I have it as a not much low end on that at all, because I got my low end from that pickup. So by separating them out, all your articulation comes from that, and all your low end comes from that. Combine them together, just like a woofer and a tweeter, and you get a kind of a bass tone. Bi-amping has been real popular with a lot of bass players over the years, because when you split your frequencies, each transducer, the high transistor and the low transistor, has less work to do. So therefore, you're getting a lot less. Imagine taking a 15-inch speaker and running super high frequency through it. That diaphragm's got to move super fast, but it's also got to push low at the same time. So as it's pushing the low frequency, it's also got to move like that. So it becomes a lot of bandwidth for one transducer to reproduce. Split it to two, put your high signals on one and your low on another, and already you're doing better. And any pro audio thing you see anywhere, or home stereo, generally has woofer and tweeter split up. Same principle at work here. But the balance control, rather than using a proper crossover, which I used to do, but I only use the crossover as a high pass filter. That means it passes high frequency. So you don't hear much there. Now I got the distortion off right now. Kind of a MIDI woody tone. A couple effects I'll use. I use them mostly just on the high. Nice Leslie speaker, which I dig. Simple pitch is just in the old days, I may have been one of the first guys to ever use a harmonizer in a rack live on stage. I'm not to be self-aggrandizing, but I remember when I first got it way back in '78, I think when they first came out, and I had it in my bass rig. Way overkill, but there was a 101 setting, which acts almost like you're got a flanger knob and you have it stopped at one place, because that's what flanging is. It takes that super tight delay setting and expands and contracts it, so it sweeps through the spectrum. So I'll use that. I do an octave up on the high frequency. Let me do it on the upper neck. You hear it with the distortion on the low F. So then I'll put an octave down on the low frequency. So sometimes I've been doing like wacky solo in the middle of something, and just to kind of pull the normal bass tone out and make it solo-y, I'll use that. But I actually almost never turn back and touch any of this stuff. I'm usually set on one setting for most of the whole night. And I like that because also a lot of people are wondering why it would be so stupid to put this on the amp instead of on the ground, where in fact, I just want to kind of be accessible to it quickly. And sometimes from the foot, and also if I had it up by the microphone, which I would normally have, I was singing, and I don't sing in Sons of Apollo, you got to run your line all the way out to the thing and all the way back again. It's just a recipe for disaster. So I just have it back here. Now I also have within my rig is my EBS pedal, which I love. It's I'll just go to a clean setting now. It's just give me a little bit more. All that nonsense is just for in the middle of a song, if you got in the body of playing something, you just want to add a little harmonic or melodic content, but you don't want to lose your low note. So the EBS pedal is, I started to really rely on it once I first got it before I got to the Helix. And I just put it in a center return, right here, FX loop. The name will automatically come up, or you can custom name it there as well. The only other thing I have on this is a little different. The distortion on and off. It's off right now. It's not hard to tell at this volume. I do a little clean EQ also on that, where I bring the clean tone, add a little bit more high end to it so it kind of breathes through there. What I'll generally use that for is if I'm doing some chordal thing, like a... A little more articulation on that high end, and whereas if I was to do that with just the low pickup, you can't really even hear what the notes are. Similar on a piano, all the melodies are done with the right hand, a higher frequency, and the fundamentals are done with the left hand. Same principle again. So the Helix is really great because I can go in with two completely separate signal paths, like it would be normally if I wasn't using the Helix. And come out with two. Then I go into two amps. I go into the Hartke LH1000 for the top. And it looks like the EQ settings are weird. The treble all the way down, bass all the way down, mid all the way up. And in fact, that's flat for these amps. I don't know why. Oddly enough, but that's the flat. Run program material through it and you'll see what I mean. They're designed for that really super deep low end and a real bright, shrill high end, kind of what they call the smiley curve, where I prefer like a half Mona Lisa smile. Like this is more like this, where a lot of people like that. So that's flat for that. And then I use one for the high, one for the low. Done. Normally, again, I don't do it with Sons of Apollo. I'll have bass pedals, the Keith McMillan 12-step, and main stage for the sound source. And that'll be running through a separate thing. So like for Mr. Big, like in Green Tinted 60s Mine, or the drill song, I got to be playing a low note while I'm doing the drill thing, so I'll use the pedals for that. And I'm using the high drive single 15s. I like them very much because when they were all aluminum cone, it was a little shrill for me, and there wasn't a lot of motion on the speaker diaphragm itself. As I explained before, that diaphragm has to move, and if you ever look at a diaphragm reproducing sounds shot in slow motion, high-speed film, the whole thing is moving like this. It's kind of an odd thing. So if they're super stiff, you'll get less harmonic content because it can't move in the ways to reproduce harmonic content. So these are kind of a combination of the two. In the old original JBL K130, D130, I think I forgot the number designation of them, but they had a soft diaphragm and an aluminum dust cover for high frequency reproduction. So this reminds me a lot of those speakers. I don't believe they make them anymore. So it's got a regular paper diaphragm and then the aluminum inside. Now I've been inside these cabinets, and it's important to me as whenever I endorse any product, I make sure that it's actually the real thing, and I only endorse stuff that I use, and I only use stuff that I endorse, and I don't get any money for saying anything about it. That's the fact of life. All you guys out there think you're going to get money out of endorsement, you're wrong. It doesn't work that way. Maybe it does for somebody, but they don't pay me. I don't know why. So I've actually opened these boxes up a couple times and look inside them and see that they're rock solid. The wood joints are done correctly. I took wood shop in high school, and I know my woodworking. And they're wired properly, and they're rock solid. I've never ever had a problem with the cabinet or a speaker ever from the Hartke stuff, and I've been using them for a better part of 10 years now, I think. And that's about it for my rig rundown. The Helix really makes things simple. And again, I don't want to ignite any controversy between Kemper or AXFX because they are awesome units and wonderful. I've had both of them and love them both. But it's just Helix and I, we gained a closer relationship because they're in LA. They contacted me. They modeled my Pierce preamp, and that's why I'm with them. But if you're not a Helix user, we're still friends. But as I see on the internet, people go crazy. Another reason to get mad at somebody. I love you no matter what. So this does make life very easy. I carry a backup one with me. I've never needed it. They're both programmed the same. They both have all the same stuff downloaded on them. So if God forbid anything ever did happen, or the airline lost one or whatever, I'm covered pretty much. And in case of even worse than that, I do have a spare EBS pedal and a spare little compressor pedal. So worst case scenario, I bring these two little guys out, plug them in, and I can at least do a show. But this is the luxurious and supremely helpful to get anything you could possibly imagine in your signal chain and make life easy for yourself. I think the most important aspect of gear is to get you up on deck so you can play and have a great night and the audience will enjoy it. Too many people get so lost here that they forget that the real world is where the audience is, So this makes it easy for me to not have to think about it so much. Set it, forget it, I'm out of there. It's the tone I want, it's the tone I need, it's what works for me, what's worked for the better part of 50 years of my playing. And that's all. Now I can concentrate on the real job at hand, which isn't figuring out, I'm trying to think of an oddball audio, damping factor or rise time or other things you might need to know if you're a real audio engineer. You can just go out there and do a performance and play and give people their money's worth when they came in to hear you. So that's it. That's my rig rundown right now as it is. Pretty simple. Bass, Helix, amps, speakers, thank you very much. And it does, again, it makes life a little easier for our crew too, because they go through hell sometimes. It's tough being out there on the road, and you got to be the first in and the last to leave. And sometimes there's a couple slices of pizza left, maybe, so they have a hard time. So I do what I can to make life easier for them. And this is my setup. So that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it, and there will be modifications coming, probably monthly or semi-annually. This will always change, a little incrementally or more so. And so the next rig run I do, I'll give you an update on what I change. All right? So thank you very much for your attention. I wish you the very best.